I was 76 the morning the judge looked over his glasses at my grandson and said, "Mr. Callahan, you'd better take a good look at your grandfather, because this is the last time you'll see him without a sheriff standing between you." You'd think a moment like that would feel triumphant, some kind of righteous vindication. But let me tell you, sitting there in that cramped county courtroom in Dayton, Ohio, the air thick with dust and old paperwork, my hands shaking on my cane, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt gutted, like someone had taken a crowbar to a piece of me I didn't know could still break. But you're not here for the courtroom. You're here for what led up to it, and how the hell a kid I once taught to bait a hook and swing a Louisville slugger ended up stealing $32,800 of his own college fund. Money I saved by skipping things I needed, not things I wanted, and blowing it on bars, clubs, and trips I only learned about when the bank statements came in. Let me back up before I get ahead of myself. It was March 3rd, 2022. Cold morning, frost clinging to the roof like it didn't want winter to be over. I remember it because I just poured my coffee, Folgers, same as always, and the phone buzzed on the counter. A text from a number I didn't recognize, but the message, it was a picture. My grandson Jason, 19 years old, in some neon-lit bar in Miami, arm around a girl, bottle of something expensive held up like a trophy, and right underneath the picture, the part that made my stomach twist. "Thanks for the college fund, old man." At first I thought it had to be a mistake. You spend enough years on this earth, you see your share of cruel jokes, but this, it didn't fit with the kid I thought I knew. I remember whispering out loud, "No, Jason Wood." My voice kind of trailed off like I didn't trust it anymore. Then the second picture came in, him on a rented yacht, sunglasses on, some friend of his holding up a stack of cash like they'd robbed a bank and wanted to frame me for it. My chest went tight. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one I refinished by hand when my wife Martha was still alive, and the wood felt cold under my palms. The scent of the coffee turned bitter, or maybe that was just the taste in my mouth. I called him, straight to voicemail. I called again, voicemail. "Jason," I said, trying to keep my voice from cracking, "call me back, son. Something's wrong here. A pause, please." You know that feeling when you realize you're talking into a void, when the person on the other end has already decided what you mean to them. Yeah, that. By 10 a.m., the bank called. A young fella named Andrew, kind of voice that tells you he hasn't lived long enough to see real trouble, cleared his throat before saying, "Mr. Callahan, did you authorize a full withdrawal of the Callahan Education Fund yesterday evening?" Full withdrawal. God, those words, they landed like a punch. I had opened that account the same week Jason was born. Every month $40, sometimes $50. I took overtime at the plant when my knees still worked. I skipped vacations. I sold Martha's old sewing machine when things got tight, though I kept one of her needles in my wallet for luck. $32,800, and that boy drained it in a single night. "You're sure?" I whispered. "Yes, sir," Andrew said. "The withdrawal was made in person by someone with power of." I cut him off without meaning to. "Power of what?" He cleared his throat again. "Power of attorney, sir. Temporary educational authorization, signed digitally." My heart dropped. He forged my signature. Silence on the line, long silence. "I can't say that for certain, sir." But he knew I knew. Hell, even the coffee maker probably knew. When I hung up the phone, the house felt different. Too quiet, too empty, the kind of empty you feel in your bones. And that was the moment, right then, that something inside me shifted, like an old hinge that finally snapped. I wasn't angry yet. Not fully. It was something deeper. A tiredness mixed with a kind of cold clarity I didn't know I still had at my age. I remember saying it out loud to no one. If he wants to play grown man games, then he can face grown man consequences. But I didn't know then how deep the hole went. I didn't know about the lies he'd told my daughter Dana or the friends he roped into covering for him. I didn't know about the forged documents or how he'd planned this for months. And I sure as hell didn't know that getting justice, for myself, for Martha, for the kid he used to be, would cost me more than money ever could. What happened over the next few weeks? Well, that's when things really started to crack. You know, if you'd asked me 10 years ago whether Jason would ever steal from me, let alone the college fund I poured my bones into, I would have laughed you out of my own living room. Back then, that kid was the one bright spot in a world that felt like it was dimming a little more each year. I was 66 when Martha passed. Cancer. Mean and fast. One of those things that doesn't care how many prayers you say or how many bargains you try to make while you're driving back from the hospital at 2 in the morning. After the funeral, the house felt hollowed out. Not empty, empty would have been a mercy, but hollow, like the walls still whispered her name. Jason was 12 then. He showed up after school almost every day, backpack half open, hair a mess, sneakers untied. "Grandpa," he'd say, dropping onto the sofa like gravity owed him something. "Mom says I shouldn't bother you, but I didn't want you to be alone." That kid saved me. I don't say that lightly. He'd sit on the floor with his sketchbook, drawing superheroes that looked suspiciously like me, old, tired, but still punching monsters in the face. He made me laugh when nothing else could. We'd fish down at Eastwood Lake on Saturdays, and he'd ask me questions about Martha, her cooking, her laugh, the way she used to sing Patsy Cline under her breath while folding laundry. He kept her alive in this house longer than any photograph ever could. Back then, I thought he'd grow into the kind of man his mother prayed for at night. Dana worked hard, single mom, teaching second grade in Kettering. She had that constantly tired but still smiling thing teachers get. She loved Jason fiercely, but like a lot of parents, she couldn't see the shadows in him because she still remembered the way he looked the first time he opened his eyes. Me, I started noticing cracks around the time he turned 16, small ones, harmless, I told myself. Once I found a dent in the side of my old F-150. "Shopping cart," he said, eyes too wide. Then I found his friend's vape under the passenger seat. "I was holding it for him," he muttered. One night he came home late, really late, and he smelled like cheap whiskey. I didn't yell, I just said, "Jason, you're smarter than this." He looked at me, annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important in that head of his. "Grandpa," he said, rolling his eyes, "you worry too much, I'm fine." And maybe that was the moment I should have pushed harder. Maybe I should have dragged his butt down to the church youth group like Dana wanted. But when you're a grandfather, you walk this strange line, trying to teach without overstepping, trying to warn without turning yourself into the enemy. So I let it slide. Because the same week he smelled like whiskey, he also fixed the loose hinge on my screen door without being asked. And the week after that, he brought me a slice of pumpkin pie from school because he said he didn't like seeing me eat alone. People aren't one thing. That boy still had good in him. I'd stake my life on that, hell, in a way I guess I did. When he graduated high school, I was proud enough to burst. The sun was brutal that day, beating down on the football field, and my knees were killing me in those metal bleachers. But when he walked across that stage and flashed that grin at the crowd, I felt like Martha was sitting right beside me. After the ceremony, he hugged me so hard I heard my back crack. "You're the reason I'm going to college," he whispered. "I won't waste a single dollar you saved for me. I promise." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. That fall, he enrolled at Wright State University. Business major. Said he wanted to build something big enough that you don't have to worry about anything in your old age. That was the last time he said anything like that. His first semester seemed fine. Grades weren't perfect, but they weren't a disaster. But by winter break, something felt off. He came around less. When he did visit, he was either glued to his phone or jittery, talking fast and skimming over questions like he was afraid they'd catch him. Once I asked him how classes were going. He just shrugged and said, "It's college, Grandpa. Chill, everything's good." But everything wasn't good. I remember the day Dana pulled into my driveway with her engine running too loud and her face pinched tight. She stepped out, slammed the car door harder than she meant to, and said, "Dad, have you noticed anything weird with Jason?" "Weird how?" I asked. She rubbed her forehead. "He says he needs more money for textbooks, but the charges on my credit card don't look like textbooks, and his advisor emailed me saying he's been skipping his morning classes." I tried to soften the blow. "He's young, Kids get overwhelmed. She gave me a look that mothers give only when they're half right and fully scared. Dad, you don't think he'd do something stupid, do you? I wanted to say no. I wanted to say absolutely not my grandson. But the truth was already tugging somewhere deep inside me. I don't know, I answered, but I'll keep an eye on him. I promised her that. I meant it too. But I didn't keep an eye on him closely enough, not nearly. Because while I was sitting across from him at the kitchen table, asking how midterms went, while I was bragging to the guy at the VA clinic about my grandson working toward a degree, while I was thinking our family was doing better than it had in years, Jason was already slipping, already lying, already opening doors that would lead him to places he couldn't climb back from. And me. I didn't see the avalanche until it was sitting in my lap. The real first crack, the one that should have warned me, came about a month later, a phone call I'll never forget. And that's where things really started to break. The first crack came on a Wednesday evening, January 12, 2022. Funny how dates stick when they're tied to pain. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting my pills for the week, grumbling at my arthritis like it owed me an apology when the phone buzzed. Wright State University, financial aid office. Seeing that caller ID hit me like a splash of cold water. Colleges don't call grandfathers unless something's wrong. I wiped my hands on my jeans, steadied my breath, and answered. Mr. Callahan, a woman asked, voice polite but clipped, the way people talk when they're bracing for impact. Yes, ma'am, I said. This is him. This is Megan from Wright State. I'm calling regarding your grandson, Jason Callahan. Do you have a moment? My heart thudded. Is he all right? She hesitated, just a hair, and that pause told me more than anything she said afterward. He's physically fine, but academically, well, we're concerned. Jason hasn't attended his Business 201 class in over 4 weeks, and he's missed multiple submissions in his economics course. We've emailed and called him several times with no reply. I sat there, my hand tightening around the phone until my knuckles went white. That doesn't sound like Jason, I whispered. I understand, she said gently, but I'm afraid his academic standing is at risk. I swallowed hard. I'll talk to him, thank you for telling me. When I hung up, the house felt smaller. Cold drafts slipped under the doors. Even the clock on the wall seemed louder, each tick telling me I had failed somewhere. I called Jason right then. He picked up on the third ring, voice quick and irritated. Grandpa, I'm busy. Too busy for school? I asked. There was a beat of silence, surprised silence, like he hadn't expected me to know. Who told you that? He snapped. The university called, I said. They're worried about you. He gave a short laugh, not a real one, more of a scoff. Oh my God, they're so dramatic. I missed a couple classes. It's not a big deal. A couple, I said. They said 4 weeks. That's wrong, he shot back. They exaggerate everything. Look, Grandpa, I've got this under control. I'm an adult now. There was something in his tone I didn't recognize, something sharp, defensive. Not the boy who used to bring me pie, not the kid who handed me his report cards like they were trophies. Jason, I tried, softer this time, you can talk to me, if something's wrong. Nothing's wrong, he shouted, and immediately after, I've been sick, all right. You want details? I had the flu or COVID, I don't know. You sound fine now. Well, I'm better now, so stop worrying. I'm not trying to. Grandpa, he cut in, voice quiet but mean around the edges. I don't need you checking up on me like I'm a kid. That one stung. It sank into me in a way I didn't show. I'm not checking up on you, I said. I'm caring, there's a difference. He exhaled hard. Look, I'm hanging out with friends tonight. Can we talk later? Jason. But the line went dead. Just like that. I sat there for a long time after the call, staring at the phone, the pill organizer half finished in front of me. I should have gone after him right then, drove to campus, banged on his dorm door, demanded answers. But grandparents, we give grace long after our kids stop deserving it. So I told myself he was overwhelmed, that he'd pull himself together, that it was growing pains, that his sharp tone was stress, not disrespect. I lied to myself because the alternative, that he was slipping into something darker, was too painful to name. The next odd sign came a week later. I had driven out to his dorm to surprise him with homemade chili, Martha's recipe, the one he always begged for. When I got to the door, two of his dorm mates were in the hall, both looking uncomfortable. One of them, lanky kid with acne scars, nodded at me. "Hey, you looking for Jason?" "Yes, sir, just dropping off dinner." The two boys exchanged a look, not a good one, the kind that says we know something you don't. "He's not here," the kid said. "Hasn't been here much at all, actually." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "He's been staying off campus," the other boy mumbled. "New friends, I guess." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Is he all right?" The first kid shrugged. "Dunno, man. He comes in late sometimes. Smells like weed or liquor. Kind of spaced out. He borrowed like $60 from me last week and hasn't paid it back." $60. Small lie, small theft, but the beginning of something much larger. "Do you know where he is now?" I asked. "No idea," the kid said. "Sorry, man." I left the chili in the dorm fridge. It sat there untouched for 3 days until someone threw it out. I know because I checked. I checked every day. A few weeks later, early February, a second crack appeared. I went down to Fifth Third Bank in Dayton to make my usual deposit into the college fund. The teller, a kind woman named Evelyn who'd known me for years, gave me a strange look when she pulled up the account. "Mr. Callahan, did you make a withdrawal last week?" I blinked. "No, ma'am, I haven't touched that account in months." She frowned, clicked through screens, then gently turned the monitor so I could see. There it was. $7,200 withdrawal, February 3rd. My pulse thudded loud in my ears. "That's not me," I whispered. Evelyn bit her lip. "Sometimes students have authorized access, does he?" "No," I said. "He doesn't, he never has." "Would you like to dispute the withdrawal?" I swallowed hard. "Not yet," I said. "Let me talk to my grandson." It was the wrong decision, and the kind that costs old men dearly. But love blinds you to theft the first time, the second time too, and sometimes the third. I walked out of the bank trembling, my cane tapping too fast on the tile like it was trying to hurry me into understanding something I didn't want to face. When I called him, he answered on the first ring. But his voice, God, his voice. "Yeah, what's up?" No warmth, no apology preloaded, no guilt. "Jason," I said, "did you take money from your college fund?" "What? No, of course not. Why would I?" "Because $7,000 is missing." He paused just long enough to confirm the truth without saying it. "That's weird," he said slowly. "Maybe the bank messed up." "The bank doesn't just lose $7,000, I replied. "Well, I didn't take it." His tone sharpened, turning defensive. "Why are you accusing me, Jesus, Grandpa?" "I'm not accusing," I said. "I'm asking." "There's nothing to ask," he snapped. "I didn't take anything. Stop micromanaging my life." He hung up again. No goodbye, no explanation. Just a dead line. That night, sitting in my recliner with the TV on too loud to cover the silence, something inside me twisted. Not anger, not yet. Not heartbreak either. It was suspicion, the cold, creeping kind that starts small and grows like mold in a basement, and once it starts, you can't unsee it. The missed classes. The strange friends. The drinking. The money. The lies. I went to bed with a knot in my stomach that wouldn't loosen. And over the next 2 weeks, everything unraveled faster than I could gather the pieces. But the moment that truly shattered me, the moment I understood I wasn't dealing with a confused teenager but someone willing to break me, came on a night I'll never forget. The forged signature. The fake authorization. The withdrawal that gutted everything. You'll see. You'll understand why something in me snapped. Because the shattering moment. That came like a hammer. You ever notice how the worst moments of your life don't announce themselves? They don't give you warning shots or storms rolling in or some gut feeling telling you to brace yourself. No, they come quiet. They slip in sideways. They hit you while you're doing something simple, ordinary, something so painfully mundane you'll remember every detail for the rest of your life. For me, it was pouring dog food. February 19th, 2022. A Saturday, cold as hell outside. My old beagle, Rusty, was pacing in circles around his bowl, whining like the world was ending if he didn't get his kibble on time. I bent down slowly because my back had started locking up again that week and poured the food. The bag crinkled, the furnace clicked on, my joints popped like bubble wrap. I remember thinking, this is a normal day. Then the mail slot clapped open and something hit the floor with a heavy thud. Not bills, not catalogs, something thick, official, the kind of envelope that carries bad news inside it like a virus. I picked it up. It was from the bank. Account status update, action required. Those words froze me. I tore it open with my thumb, sat down at the table and unfolded the pages. The first line hit me like a blow. This letter is to confirm the closure of the Callahan Education Fund account following a full withdrawal on February 16th, 2022. Full withdrawal. Not the partial $7,200. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. Every dollar. All $32,800. Gone. My vision tunneled. My ears rang. Rusty nudged my leg, whining, but it sounded like he was underwater. My fingers trembled so hard the papers rattled. There was more, a line that burned itself into my memory like a brand. Withdrawal authorized under temporary educational power of attorney, signed by James Callahan. James Callahan, that's me. That's my name, my hand, my identity. Except I hadn't signed a damn thing. I stared at that forged signature, my own name written in a shaky imitation of my handwriting. Not perfect, but close enough to fool a bank once the digital verification box was checked. A sour taste filled my mouth. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table to keep myself upright. Someone had stolen my signature, my identity, my trust, and the only person with access to the information needed to do that was Jason. I whispered it out loud, as if saying it would make it less true. No, Jason wouldn't. But the lie tasted like metal. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to press them flat against the table just to keep them still. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. On the fifth try, he finally answered, but not because he cared. I heard music thumping in the background, laughter, glasses clinking, some kind of party. What? He snapped. I swallowed, tried to keep my voice steady. Jason, I got a letter from the bank. Okay, he said, annoyed, and the entire college fund is gone. Silence. Not guilty silence. Annoyed silence. Like I was inconveniencing him. Yes, so it's my money, he said. I stiffened. It was your future, and I saved it for 18 years. Grandpa, relax, he said, raising his voice just a little like he was trying to talk over something. I needed it. For what? I asked. You told me you were fine in school. You told me nothing was wrong. He scoffed. School was boring. I'm taking a break. A break, I repeated. You dropped out. I didn't drop out, he said defensively. I'm just exploring other things. What things? I asked, though my gut already knew. Another scoff. You wouldn't get it. Jason, I said, voice cracking without my permission, you forged my name. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He didn't even hesitate. Yeah, well, you weren't picking up, he said. I needed the money, and you weren't going to give it to me. The world went still. Like time held its breath. I wasn't going to give it to you, I repeated slowly, because it was for college, for your future, and you didn't even ask. He laughed, actually laughed. Oh my God, Grandpa, stop being dramatic. That was when something inside me, something old and tired and loyal, finally snapped. My voice dropped. Jason, what did you spend $32,000 on? He hesitated, not long, just enough for me to know he was choosing a lie. Books, he said. Books, I whispered. You spent $32,000 on books. And stuff, he added. You don't need to know everything. I don't need to, my throat closed. Jason, that was all the money I had left for you, everything I saved, everything I promised your grandmother I'd protect. Okay, and, he said, irritated, it's gone, get over it. My vision blurred. I couldn't tell if it was tears or rage or something in between. Jason, I said softly, what did you really spend it on? More music in the background, a girl laughing, someone yelling shot, shot, shot. And then he said it. The sentence that destroyed whatever innocence I've been clinging to. Why do you care? You're old. It's not like you'll be around long enough to need it. My breath caught. Everything in me, the love, the pride, the memories shattered. I whispered his name, Jason. He hung up. Just like that. No apology. No fear. No second thoughts. Just a click. A dead line. And a dead promise. I sat there for, hell, I don't know how long, listening to the furnace hum, the papers rustling when my hands shook, Rusty whining softly beside me like he could smell the heartbreak in the air. That was the night I knew the boy I raised, the boy who brought me pie and drew superheroes that looked like me, was gone. And the young man wearing his face had become someone else. Someone dangerous. Someone who believed consequences didn't apply to him. Someone who thought I was too old, too weak, too slow to fight back. But he didn't know me. Not really. Not yet. Because something else happened that night, something he didn't plan for, didn't see coming. A spark lit inside me. Small, cold, steady, not anger, not revenge. Purpose. The shattering moment wasn't the end. It was the beginning. You'd think the shattering moment would have sent me straight into action, calling the police, marching down to the bank, raising hell until someone listened. But that's not how it works when you're old and blindsided by someone you love. The truth is, I sank first. Deep. The kind of sinking that makes every step feel like walking through cold mud. For about 2 weeks after that phone call, I moved through my own house like a stranger. The same house where Martha planted roses out back. The same kitchen table where Jason once drew pictures of superheroes with my gray hair and her smile. Now it all felt like a crime scene. I stopped answering the phone. I stopped going to the VFW breakfasts. I stopped doing my morning walk around the block. My body felt heavier than my own bones could handle, and some days I didn't get out of bed until noon. That bank letter sat on the counter, folded and refolded so many times the paper softened. I'd pick it up, stare at my forged signature and feel that sick twist in my stomach. Not just betrayal, humiliation. Like I'd been played for a fool and didn't even see the cards. One night I sat in my recliner with the TV on, volume up so loud it drowned the quiet, ESPN highlights from games I didn't care about. The house still felt too silent underneath it. Rusty slept at my feet, his old body twitching in dreams, unaware of how broken things had become. Around 9:30 p.m. Dana called. I let it ring. Then ring again. On the third ring I answered. Dad, she said, voice tight with worry. You okay? You haven't been picking up. I cleared my throat. I'm fine. You don't sound fine. I didn't respond. Dad, she pressed gently, I talked to Jason today. He told me you two argued. Argued? That word didn't come close. I wouldn't call it an argument, I said, more like a revelation. Her breath caught. Dad, what happened? I hesitated. I didn't want to say it. Saying it out loud made it real, carved it into something permanent. He stole the entire college fund, I said quietly. The line went silent. Dad, don't joke like that. I'm not joking. She inhaled sharply. No, he wouldn't. Jason wouldn't. He forged my name, I said, my voice cracking. Used it to drain everything. A tiny strangled sound escaped her, half gasp, half cry. Dad, no, he wouldn't do that. He did. Her breathing turned uneven. But he promised. He told me he was applying for internships, that he needed to focus on classwork, he said. Dana, I said softly, he's lying. She went quiet again. Then, in a voice that barely held itself together, I raised him better than this. I closed my eyes. You did, but people make their own choices. What do we do? She asked. We. She said we. I didn't deserve that kind of loyalty, but she gave it anyway. I don't know, I admitted. I feel like my mind's fogged up. She was quiet for a long moment, then said, Dad, please let me come over tomorrow. We'll figure this out together. You're not doing this alone. For the first time in days, something tugged inside my chest. Gratitude, guilt, maybe both. All right, I whispered. After we hung up, I sat there listening to the refrigerator hum like it was mocking me. Everything in that house reminded me of what I'd lost. It wasn't the money. It was the boy I thought I had. The boy Martha believed in. The next morning, I woke up feeling older than I'd ever felt. My knees screamed climbing out of bed. My back cracked in 3 places just bending down to pet Rusty. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like someone who'd been hollowed out, pale, sunken eyes, shoulders slumped. I tried shaving. My hands shook too much. Dana came over around noon, her face red from crying. She sat at the table, took one look at me and said, Dad, you look sick. I'm just tired. Tired doesn't make you look like this. I slid the bank letter across the table. She read it like each word was a blade. Oh my God, she whispered. His signature, Dad, that's he copied yours. I know. This is fraud, she said, voice trembling. This is a felony. The word felony echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. Hearing it applied to my grandson made something twist painfully inside me. She wiped her eyes. Dad, we have to call the police. I'm not ready for that, I said. Why not? Because admitting your grandson is a criminal is harder than admitting you're old. Harder than admitting you failed somewhere along the years. I looked down at my hands. I just need time. Dana pressed her palms to her face. He's out of control, Dad. I heard rumors from one of the other teachers that he's been going to parties instead of classes. Some girl at the school said he posted videos from Miami last week. I felt that sinking sensation in my gut again. Miami. The beach pictures. The yacht. The parties. My grandson wasn't spiraling. He had already spiraled. Dana reached across the table, put her hand over mine. Dad, he doesn't respect you. He doesn't fear consequences, and he's not stopping. I know, I whispered, but he's my grandson. She squeezed my hand. And you're my father. I'm not letting him destroy you. I didn't have an answer for that. I didn't have an ounce of strength left. After she left, the house slipped back into silence. Not peaceful silence, the kind that presses on your chest. By late afternoon, a migraine started behind my eyes. I lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling, counting the water stains I'd been meaning to fix for years. My mind replayed Jason's words, "You're old. You won't be around long enough to need it." Over and over. At some point, I drifted off. When I woke, the sun had set. And there on my phone were new messages from Jason. 3 of them. Stop involving Mom. It was MY money. If you make trouble for me, I swear you'll regret it. You ever feel your blood go cold? I stared at that last message for a long time. Regret it. Threats. From my own grandson. That's when everything inside me hardened into something cold and quiet, something steadier than rage. I realized then, truly realized, that I was no longer dealing with a lost kid. I was dealing with someone willing to destroy me to get what he wanted. Someone who felt unstoppable. Someone who needed a consequence, so big it would break the delusion he'd built around himself. That was the night, lying in the dark, house creaking around me, when I decided this wasn't going to end with me collapsed on the floor while he partied on stolen money. No. If Jason wanted to see how old I really was, He was going to learn the hard way. But before I could strike back, I had to gather myself from the pit I'd fallen into and lean on the one person I never expected. The help came from someone I barely knew. A night shift nurse named Rosa. And she changed everything. I wasn't expecting anyone that morning. Not a soul. I'd barely slept, maybe 2 hours total, before waking up with that familiar heaviness pressing on my chest. When your heart's been broken by your own blood, the mornings come harder, colder. I was sitting at the kitchen table nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee when I heard the knock. 3 gentle taps, not the hurried kind of someone selling something. The soft kind people use when they're not sure you're awake. "Mr. Callahan," a voice called through the door, soft, warm. "It's Rosa from the clinic." Rosa. I hadn't seen her since my last VA appointment 2 weeks earlier. I opened the door and there she was, mid-40s, dark curly hair pinned back, wearing a navy coat and holding a grocery bag. She had that tired but kind face nurses tend to get, like they spend their lives holding other people's pain. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said gently. "I brought you some soup." Soup. Someone brought me soup. For a second I almost broke again, but old men don't cry at their doors, so I stepped aside. "Come in." She walked in, her eyes scanning the house, not judging, assessing. Nurses do that without thinking. They look for signs of how you're really doing. "You didn't look well at the clinic last time," she said, and I had a feeling, well, I just wanted to check in. She set the grocery bag on the table. Chicken noodle, crackers, a fresh loaf of bread, real food, the kind Martha used to make. "You didn't have to drive all the way out here," I said quietly. "I know," she said. "That's why I did." She smiled, small, sad, knowing. "Sit, let me heat this up." I didn't argue. I didn't have the strength to. She moved around the kitchen like she belonged there, finding bowls, ladles, spoons, all without asking. And for the first time in weeks, the house didn't feel like it was swallowing me. When she set the soup in front of me, steam rising, she sat across the table and folded her hands. "You want to tell me what happened?" she asked. I didn't want to. God knows I didn't want to. But sometimes the truth spills when someone finally asks the right way. So I told her. Everything. The missed classes. The strange friends. The $7,200 withdrawal. The Miami pictures. The forged signature. The entire fund drained. The threats. By the time I finished, my voice was raw. Rosa didn't interrupt once. She just listened, eyes soft and steady, hands unmoving, no flinching, no disgust, no disbelief. "I'm sorry," she whispered when I finally stopped. "No grandfather should ever carry that alone." I stared down at the soup, appetite gone. "What do I do, Rosa? He's my grandson, but he's also a criminal." She took a slow breath. "You protect yourself, and you make sure he can't hurt you again." I shook my head. "I'm not sure I can. I don't even know where to begin." She leaned back slightly, thinking. "Do you still have the bank statements?" "All of them," I said. "I kept every letter." "Good, you'll need those." "For what?" She met my eyes. "For evidence." My stomach tightened. "Evidence for what? I don't want him in prison." Her expression softened. "Mr. Callahan, fraud is already a crime. What you want doesn't change what he did." "I know," I whispered, "but still." She reached out, rested her hand over mine, the same way Dana had, but different, firmer, more determined. "You're not punishing him," she said. "You're protecting yourself." Just then Rusty wandered over and nudged her hand. She laughed quietly, scratched behind his ears, then looked back at me. "You shouldn't face this alone," she said, "and you don't have to." "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "I know someone, a helper at the nursing home whose brother deals with digital fraud cases. He's not law enforcement, he works in IT security, but he's smart, very smart, and he's helped patients before when their families took advantage." "Rosa," I sighed, "I don't want to drag strangers into this." "You're not dragging anyone," she said. "You're getting help, that's strength, not burden." I sat there staring at the steam swirling up from the bowl. My hands shook. Not from age this time, but from something rising inside me. A spark I hadn't felt in weeks. Focus. Purpose. The beginning of a plan. "What's his name?" I asked. "Zach," she said. "Early 30s, sharp as a tack. If anyone can trace where your money went, it's him." I exhaled, shaky. I've never done anything like this." "That's why you need allies," she said. "Jason didn't expect you to fight back. That's exactly why you must." I swallowed hard. Would he really help? Rosa smiled faintly. "He will if I ask him." And then she said the line that changed everything. "You've been hurt, Mr. Callahan. Now it's time to get your power back." I stared at her, letting those words settle in my bones. Power? I hadn't felt that in months. "What do we do first?" I asked quietly. She stood, walked to the counter, grabbed the bank letter and flattened it out. "The first thing," she said, "is to gather every document, every voicemail, every text, every screenshot. Jason left a trail. He always does. We follow it." "And the second thing?" I asked. She met my eyes. "We find out exactly where your money went and who helped him spend it." A chill ran up my spine, not fear but something colder, sharper. Determination. Rosa placed the letter back down and said, "I'll call Zach tonight, tell him everything. When he gets here, you tell him the truth. No sugarcoating. He needs the real story." "I can do that," I said. "I know you can," she said. She gathered her coat, paused at the door, and added softly, "You're not alone anymore." When the door closed behind her, the house felt different. Not lighter, not safer, but steadier. Like the shift you feel right before a storm breaks, not the panic, but the moment you finally decide to face it head on. Jason thought I'd crumble. Jason thought I'd stay quiet. Jason thought I'd take the blow and disappear into the shadows of my old age. But he didn't plan on Rosa, or Zach, or the part of me that still had some fight left. What came next wasn't just gathering evidence, it was building the first steps of a trap. And once it was set, there'd be no climbing out of it. You don't wake up one morning and decide to trap your own grandson. You ease into it, slow as an old truck on black ice. But once the wheels start moving, there's no turning back. And that was me, February sliding into early March, moving forward because going backward meant dying with the weight he'd put on my chest. Rosa came back 2 days later, this time with Zach in tow. He didn't look like the type of guy who tears apart financial lies for a living. Mid-30s, baseball cap, worn Carhartt jacket, carrying a laptop bag covered in stickers. He had the mild, calm face of someone who fixes things without bragging about it. "Mr. Callahan," he said, shaking my hand firmly, "Rosa told me enough to make me concerned, but I want to hear it from you." We sat at the kitchen table, the same place Martha used to knead bread dough, and I walked him through everything. The withdrawals, the forged signature, the Miami photos, the threats. My voice shook a few times, but he didn't flinch. He typed as fast as I talked. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and whistled softly. "Your grandson wasn't sloppy," he said, "but he wasn't smart either. There'll be a trail." "A trail?" I asked. Zach nodded. "Digital footprints, card usage, IP logs, geotags. He needed to use accounts, his or others, to access that money. People who steal don't realize how many pieces of themselves they leave behind." I swallowed. "Can you track it?" "That's what I'm here for." Rosa sat quietly beside me, hand resting lightly on my arm, steadying me even when I pretended I didn't need it. "First," Zach said, "I'm going to need everything you've got. Statements, letters, screenshots, your phone, his messages." I slid the stack of papers across the table. "It's all there." He nodded. "Good. And second, you're going to have to talk to him again." My stomach twisted. "Talk to him?" "Not like before," Zach said quickly. "You won't confront him, you'll act confused, unsure, maybe even apologetic. You need him comfortable, arrogant. He needs to think you're too soft to fight." My chest tightened. "I don't like lying." Zach gave a sad, understanding smile. "I know, but he forged your identity. He lied to your face. He stole your future savings. You pretending to be a little confused is the least of the sins in this house." Rosa squeezed my arm gently. "You won't be mean. You'll just give him space to show who he really is." I nodded slowly. It felt wrong, but so did everything about this situation. "What do I say?" I asked. Zach opened his laptop. "You say you're struggling to understand the bank stuff, that you might have misplaced the paperwork, that you're not sure what the withdrawal was for, and you're hoping he can clarify." I felt my blood thrum, rage mixed with shame. "He'll think I've lost it." "Exactly," Zach said, "and he'll let his guard down." Rosa looked at me softly. "You're not playing weak, you're playing smart." I clenched my jaw. "All right, I can do that." Zach spent the next hour combing through documents. I watched him work quick, focused, barely blinking. Every so often he'd mutter things to himself under his breath, things like, "Yep, here's the timestamp. Miami geotags, that helps." Wow, he really thought this would disappear. At one point he pulled up Jason's Instagram. My heart lurched seeing the pictures. Champagne bottles, someone's luxury apartment, pool parties lit up in cheap neon. Zach pointed to a photo. "See that little discoloration in the lower left corner? That's the edge of a hotel security watermark. Means the picture was taken on the property of a resort that uses embedded metadata. I can search it." I blinked. "You can do that?" He chuckled. "Sir, you'd be amazed what the internet gives up." He traced the watermark back to a hotel in Miami Beach, one that cost more per night than I made in a week during my best factory years. "That's where your money went," Zach said quietly. "Not school. Not books. Not a break. A damn resort." My fists tightened. "What else can we find?" "Everything," he said simply. "But first, you need to call him." I stared at my phone for 10 minutes before picking it up. Rosa sat across from me, calm but alert, like she was ready to catch me if I stumbled. Zach stood against the counter typing something quietly. I hit Jason's name. It rang twice. He answered, flat, irritated, like I was interrupting a video game. "What now?" he muttered. I swallowed hard and forced my voice to tremble just slightly. "Jason, I'm confused about the bank stuff. I think maybe I misplaced some papers." A beat of silence, then his tone changed, cooler, smugger. "Oh yeah, I told you, Grandpa, I handled everything. You don't need to worry." I know, I said softly. I don't understand why the account closed. Maybe I messed up. My memory isn't what it used to be." Beside me, Zach gave a small nod. "Perfect." Jason sighed dramatically. "Yeah, well, look, I'll explain it later, okay? I'm busy." "I just want to understand," I whispered. "I'm sorry if I caused trouble." His voice brightened, fake, sugary. "Nah, you're fine. You just get confused sometimes. It happens." Rosa's jaw tightened hard. I forced out a shaky laugh. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I made the mistake. Could you, walk me through it later so I can fix it?" "That's why I handled it," he said. "You didn't need to. I appreciate you taking care of things for me." He paused, a long assessing pause. "Then yeah, you should." He hung up. No goodbye. No warmth. Just confidence, the arrogant kind Zach wanted him to feel. Zach closed his laptop with a soft click. "Perfect. That's exactly what we needed." I had to breathe through my teeth to keep steady. "He thinks I'm slipping." "That's the point," Zach said. "Now he'll talk freely, he'll brag, he'll slip up, and we'll record every word." Rosa reached across and took my hand again. "You did good." I didn't feel good. I felt sick. But there was no turning back now. "What's next?" I asked. Zach slung his laptop bag over his shoulder. "Next, we set the trap." A shiver ran through me, not fear but certainty. Because the setup had begun. And once the wheels started turning, the only thing left was the execution. If you told me a year earlier that I'd be sitting in my own living room plotting how to bring my grandson to justice, I'd have laughed you out of the house. But grief does strange things. Betrayal does worse. And by the time early March settled in, cold, gray skies over Dayton that made everything feel washed out and brittle, I wasn't the same man who used to slip $20 into Jason's pocket just because. The setup was done. Now came the strike. Not a punch. Not a confrontation. Something far quieter and far more devastating. Zach arrived at my house on a Friday evening with a small black bag and the kind of grin men get when they know they're about to expose something ugly. "You ready?" he asked. "No," I said honestly, "but do it anyway." He opened the bag. Inside were two items: a slim gray smartphone, cheaper model, the kind you can buy prepaid at Walmart, and a little square device with a blinking blue light. "What's all that?" I asked. Zach set them on the table. "This," he said, touching the phone, "is your new number. Jason doesn't know it. You're going to use this only when you talk to him from now on." "And that," I pointed to the blinking thing. "A recorder," he said. "Not voice-activated, manual, it won't fail you." My chest tightened. "Feels wrong." Zach gave me a tired half-smile. "It only feels wrong because you still see him as the boy who brought you pumpkin pie." Rosa, who'd arrived just after Zach and stood near the counter with her arms folded, added softly, "You deserve protection, and he deserves accountability." I let out a long breath. "All right, tell me what to do." Zach explained the plan in 3 steps. Step 1. Call Jason from the new number. Tell him the bank found another issue. Ask him to explain what he did again. Apologize for being forgetful. Let him talk. Step 2. Get him comfortable. He thinks he has control. Feed that belief. Make him repeat the story, fill in details, dig his own hole. Step 3. Secure enough recorded admissions to build a fraud complaint strong enough that even a half-asleep county judge couldn't ignore it. I sat there listening, my heart thudding like a hammer in my chest. It wasn't the legal part that scared me, it was the emotional part. Pretending to be confused, letting him think I was slipping, letting him believe he'd beaten me. Pride is a hell of a thing to swallow, but I did. Zach set the recorder down in front of me. "Whenever you're ready." My hands shook. Rosa noticed. She pulled out a chair and sat beside me. "You're not alone," she whispered. Something in me steadied. I pressed the call button. Jason answered with that same bored tone. "Yeah." "Jason," I said softly. "Grandpa, whose number is this?" The bank helped me set up a new phone. My old one was, acting up." A pause, then a laugh, not kind, not warm, sharp. "Yeah, you've been forgetting a lot lately," he said. Zach mouthed, "Good, let him think that." I forced a chuckle. "I guess I have. Listen, the bank mailed something else. Another letter, I didn't understand it." "What letter?" he asked. "About the account. The one you handled for me." He sighed dramatically. "Grandpa, I told you, it's all taken care of." I know, I said, adding a tremble to my voice. I just want to understand. I keep getting confused." There was a long silence. I imagined him leaning back in some dorm chair or maybe sprawled across someone's couch, annoyed that I was cutting into his fun. Finally he said, "Fine, what do you want to know?" My throat tightened. "Just how did you get access? I don't remember signing anything." Another sharp little laugh. "You didn't, I signed for you." Rosa's eyes widened. Zach's hand shot to his keyboard. I swallowed hard. "You signed for me, like my name." "Grandpa," he said, patronizing as hell, "it's not hard to do your signature. I've seen you write it 1,000,000 times, and the bank barely checks." Zach mouthed, "Perfect." I made my voice small, but wasn't that wrong? Jason scoffed. "Who cares? It's my college fund. You made it for me." My chest ached, but I thought it was for school. "Yeah, well," he said, "school sucks, and I needed a break, and I needed the cash, and you weren't going to give it to me unless I acted like your perfect little grandson." That one hit like a fist to my ribs. I kept my voice soft, shaky. What did you use it for?" He paused, hesitating just long enough to choose a lie. "Then books." Zach's eyebrows shot up. He whispered, "Ask for details." I forced a fragile laugh. $30,000 of books. Another pause, then travel, new laptop. I had to, figure out life. Miami, I whispered. A sigh. Oh my God, Grandpa, you saw that. I did. Well, yeah, he said bluntly. Some of it went to the trip, big deal. Some, I repeated. Okay, a lot, he said, but that's not the point. What is the point? That you're not in charge of me anymore, he snapped. I'm an adult. You don't get to dictate how I use my own money. I closed my eyes, letting silence fill the gap. Then he delivered the second blow. And honestly, if you're too old to handle your accounts, maybe it's better I take care of everything from now on. I felt the blood drain from my face. Rosa grabbed my hand under the table. Jason kept going, unaware, or uncaring, of what he was confessing into a recorder quietly blinking blue on the table. Maybe if you sign some things over to me, he said, we can avoid more bank headaches. You keep forgetting stuff, Grandpa. You need help. That wasn't concern. That was strategy. Control. Manipulation. The kind I'd heard about at the VA support groups. The kind predators use on the elderly. My stomach turned. I'll think about it, I whispered. Good, he said, sounding satisfied. Call me later, I gotta go. He hung up. The room stayed silent for several seconds after the call. Zach broke it first. Well, he said, there it is, direct admission, fraud, forgery, intent to control your finances. He tapped the recorder. And now we have it on tape. I felt sick. I wanted to throw up. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear, from heartbreak. Rosa reached over and touched my arm. You did what you had to do. I looked at Zach. What happens now? He took a deep breath. Now we hit him from two sides. Two, I asked. Financial records, Zach said, lifting his laptop. Everything he bought with that money, every transfer, every location ping. And what? I whispered. Zach looked me dead in the eyes. And the law, Mr. Callahan. It's time to involve the county court. My blood ran cold. Rosa nodded. You're not hurting him. Life is. You're just refusing to take the fall in his place. I thought of Jason's smile, his drawings, his hand in mine when he was 6. And then I thought of his voice from earlier. You're not in charge of me anymore. You're old. You forget things. You need help signing things over. That wasn't my grandson speaking. That was a man who believed I was prey. And I felt something shift inside me. Cold. Steady. Final. All right, I said quietly. Tell me what we do next. Zach nodded once, sharp, approving. The next move, he said, will happen where he least expects it. And he was right. Because the execution wasn't going to happen over the phone. It was going to happen in person. Public, legal, and irreversible. There's a moment in every storm when the pressure changes, when the air gets heavy, still, charged, right before the sky finally splits open. That's what it felt like in the days before everything came crashing down on Jason. Not victory, not relief. Just a deep, quiet tension humming under my ribs. Zach filed the fraud packet with the county clerk on a Tuesday morning, March 15, 2022. Cold wind outside, but the sun was bright, the kind of day that looks cheerful until you step into it. Rosa drove me there herself, even though I told her 100 times she didn't need to. She just said, Mr. Callahan, big days are not days to go alone. The fraud packet was thick, nearly an inch of printouts, screenshots, bank forms, timestamps, and that recording. Zach printed everything in triplicate and labeled each section like he was preparing for battle. Once this is filed, he said, sliding it through the clerk's window, it's real, no backing out. I nodded, good. But inside, something broke again. A softer break this time. A sad one. Because filing that packet felt like burying whatever was left of the boy I'd raised. 3 days later, the sheriff's deputy knocked on my door. He was a big guy, late 40s, kind eyes, mustache thick enough to belong in a 1980s movie. He held a clipboard and a manila envelope. James Callahan, he asked. That's me. Serving notice of fraud proceedings against Jason Callahan. Court date is set. You'll need to be there. He paused, examined my face gently. You all right, sir? You got support through this? I swallowed. Yes, I've got help. Good. Folks don't always have someone in their corner for these cases. After he left, I stood in the doorway for a long time, envelope in hand, listening to the quiet hum of the neighborhood. Kids playing down the street, a dog barking, a lawnmower in the distance. Life going on like nothing had happened. But something had. Something huge. I called Dana to tell her the court had officially scheduled the hearing. She answered on the first ring, voice tight. Dad, what happened? They issued the notice, I said. It's set for April 4th. Silence, then a tremble in her voice. Dad, he's my son. I know, I whispered, and he's my grandson. What do I do? She asked. You tell the truth, I said. That's all any of us can do now. She sniffed. Can I come over? Of course. When she arrived, she sat on the couch, clutching a box of tissues, eyes red but determined. I hate him for this, she said suddenly, and I hate myself for hating him. I sat beside her, laid a shaky hand on her back. Dana, he did this to himself. No, she said bitterly. No, Dad, he did this to you. Her voice cracked. You saved that money for him. You worked overtime, skipped vacations, lived small so he could live big someday, and he took it. Not just the money, your dignity. Those words landed hard. Because she was right. And hearing it out loud almost split me open. I whispered, we'll get through this. She leaned into me like she used to when she was little. Will he go to jail? I didn't know, but I knew the truth mattered more now than any punishment. We'll let the court decide, I said. The unraveling truly began the next day. Jason showed up at my house. Didn't call, didn't text, just pounded on my door like he owned the place. Grandpa, open up. My stomach tightened. I motioned for Rosa to step back into the hallway. She'd stopped by to check on me, and I opened the door only halfway. Jason stood there in a gray hoodie, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, not from crying, from partying, or worse. You filed charges against me, he demanded, voice rising. I swallowed, kept my tone steady. The county did. I submitted evidence. You snitched on your own grandson, he said, stepping closer. I put a hand on the doorframe. Jason, you stole from me. He scoffed. It was my money, old man. Stop making this dramatic. My heart tightened. That phrase, old man, had become his favorite weapon. I saved it for your future, I said. Yeah, and now my future's screwed because you're acting senile. Rosa stepped out from behind the wall then, not threatening but present. Jason flinched when he saw her. Who the hell is this? He snapped. A friend, I said, someone helping me. What, you think you need protection from me? He laughed harshly. Unbelievable. I steadied my breath. Jason, you need to leave. No, he said, pushing the door open another inch. You're going to the clerk's office tomorrow and you're withdrawing the complaint. That's not happening, I said. His voice dropped to a cold whisper. If you don't, I'll make sure you regret this. Rosa stepped forward. You need to go now. Jason glared at her. Stay out of this. She didn't move. Leave. For a second, I saw the boy he used to be, the one who helped me rake leaves, who hugged me when Martha died. Then it morphed into something cold, entitled. He spat on the porch and said, Fine, but when this blows up, I'm done with you. And he stormed off. Rosa closed the door softly behind him. Are you okay? I exhaled shakily. No, but I will be. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of paperwork, statements, meetings, and long nights where I stared at the ceiling thinking, where did I go wrong? The unraveling wasn't just Jason's, it was mine. I lost weight. I slept less. I spent nights replaying every memory of him from age 3 to 19. Every fishing trip, every Christmas, every birthday, every small moment where I might have given too much grace, let too much slide. But grief sharpened into something else. Purpose, clarity, resolve. Rosa checked on me daily. Dana visited twice a week. Zach analyzed every new piece of information Jason posted online. And when April 4th finally came, I walked into that county courthouse in my best flannel shirt, clean-shaven, shoulders straight. Jason arrived 10 minutes later with a public defender and a scowl. He didn't look at me. That hurt more than anything. The judge called the room to order. And the moment the proceedings began, the moment Zach handed over the folder containing every piece of evidence, the look on Jason's face shifted. Not to guilt, not to regret, to fear. For the first time, he understood this wasn't a game. And when the judge asked him directly, "Did you forge your grandfather's signature to withdraw $32,800 from his account?" his voice cracked when he lied. A crack big enough for the truth to spill from every corner of that courtroom. But the real collapse came next. A sentence that changed everything. One I never expected to hear. "Mr. Callahan, due to the evidence provided, I'm issuing a formal order for restitution, supervision, and mandatory counseling. Any attempt to coerce or contact your grandfather improperly will result in jail time." Jason looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time in months. Eyes wide, shocked. Lost. Not my little boy. Not anymore. But not untouchable either. The unraveling was complete. And what came next? That was the resolution. The courthouse hallway was strangely quiet after the hearing, just the echo of shoes on tile and the distant hum of an old vending machine. I stood there holding the restitution order in my hand, feeling the weight of it. Paper shouldn't feel heavy, but this one did. Maybe because it wasn't just paper. It was a line in the sand. Jason walked out behind his public defender, shoulders slumped, the swagger gone, the arrogance gone, even the anger gone. What was left was something hollowed out, fear mixed with something that might have been shame if he let it get that far. He glanced my way, not fully, just enough to acknowledge I existed, enough to show he knew the fallout wasn't over. "Grandpa," he murmured. I didn't step toward him, I didn't step away either, I just waited. He swallowed hard. I never thought it would get this bad. I felt my throat tighten. "It did get this bad, Jason. You made choices, and choices have consequences." He looked down at his shoes, cheap white sneakers scuffed at the toe. "I didn't think you'd fight back." "That," I said quietly, "is exactly why I had to." His defender touched his arm. "We need to go. You'll start the paperwork downstairs." Jason nodded, but before he left he whispered, "I'm sorry." I believed he meant it in that moment, but sorry isn't the same as changed. Sorry is a spark. Change takes the whole fire. "Do the work," I told him softly. "Earn your way back." He nodded again, then followed the attorney out the door. I didn't watch him leave. I turned toward the courthouse steps instead, where Dana and Rosa were waiting. Dana looked at me with red, swollen eyes, relief and heartbreak tangled together. "Dad, you did it." "No," I said, voice low. "I survived it." She hugged me hard, tighter than she had when she was a little girl. "I'm proud of you." I shook my head. "There's nothing proud about any of this." "There is," she insisted. "You didn't let him destroy you." Rosa stepped forward next, offering her hand, then ignoring it entirely and pulling me into a gentle hug. "You stood up for yourself. That takes strength." "Feels more like exhaustion," I said. "Strength and exhaustion live in the same bones," she replied with a small smile. "Especially at your age." I laughed just a little, enough to know I wasn't broken beyond repair. The weeks that followed were quieter. Jason was ordered to repay the full amount, every dollar he'd blown on Miami bars and hotel rooms. He had to attend financial responsibility counseling, perform community service, and stay away from me unless I agreed otherwise. And he had supervised check-ins with a court-appointed officer who didn't tolerate excuses. Dana said he cried the first night, not out of remorse, out of fear. But fear can be the first crack in a wall someone builds around their own arrogance. Me, I went back to my routines. Morning walks. Coffee at the kitchen table. Rusty snoring at my feet. Visits from Rosa on her days off. Check-in calls from Zach, who refused to take $1 from me for his help. "You already paid me," he said once. "How is that?" I asked. "You gave me a reason to use my skills for something that mattered." I didn't argue. Sometimes you just accept the blessings that stumble into your life. Dana and I had long talks, hard ones, painful ones. We both grieved the same boy but in different ways. She as a mother, wondering if she'd missed signs. Me as a grandfather, wondering if I'd mistaken love for lenience. People think the worst part of betrayal is the act itself. It is. It's the days that follow. The quiet moments when you're sitting alone, remembering the kid you used to lift onto your shoulders, wondering how he turned into a stranger capable of stealing your future. Some nights I lay awake thinking about that question. Some nights I blamed myself. Some nights I blamed him. Most nights, I blamed the world that chews up young men and spits them out meaner than they started. But guilt doesn't fix anything. Regret doesn't rewind the clock. And grief doesn't always need answers. What mattered, what truly mattered, was that I got myself back. I wasn't the confused, crumbling old man Jason thought he could manipulate. I wasn't the pushover who'd roll over and let him take everything. I wasn't done, not by a long shot. About 2 months after the hearing, I was sitting on my back porch watching the sunset when my phone buzzed. It was a number I recognized now, Jason's court-appointed counselor. "He's working his shifts," she said. "He's showing up. He's quiet, but he's not mouthing off. That's progress." I nodded. "Thank you for telling me. Would you like updates, or would you prefer distance?" I closed my eyes, letting the breeze touch my face. "Updates, just not from him yet." "Understood." After she hung up, I sat there for a long time, watching the sky go from orange to purple, listening to the rustle of leaves, feeling the ache in my knees, old, familiar, comforting even. Rosa came out from the kitchen, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. "Not at all." She settled into the chair beside me. "You look tired." "I am," I said, "but it's a good tired." She sipped her tea. "You think things will ever go back to normal?" I stared at the horizon. "No." She nodded slowly. "And is that all right?" I took a breath, let it out. "Yeah, I think it is." Because normal wasn't what I needed anymore. Truth was. Boundaries were. Self-respect was. Peace, the kind earned after war, was. Jason would have a long road ahead. Maybe he'd rebuild himself. Maybe he'd heal. Maybe one day he'd stand in front of me not as the boy who stole everything, but as the man who gave something back. I don't know. And for the first time, I'm not afraid of not knowing. Some stories don't end clean. Some families don't break or mend, they stretch. Hurt. Grow crooked. Find new shapes. And some grandfathers learn, late in life, that loving someone means telling the truth, even when the truth burns. I stood, joints popping, watching the last streak of sun disappear, feeling the weight of everything I'd carried and everything I'd finally put down. My voice was soft when I finally said it. I didn't get back what he stole, not exactly. Rosa looked at me gently. "No." "No," I said, "I got something better." She smiled. "What's that?" "Myself." And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt whole.